Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Boisterous coming to you with some Masters League Magnificence out on that Newkirk City. Spying down here in the bottom right-hand corner, we do have CCwFireStorm as the red Terran, and over here in the bottom left-hand corner, we have his opponent Chobo as the blue Zerg. So you're gonna have some TVZ Masters League action on Newkirk City. I don't know why, but SC2 replays actually just threw me for a bit of a loop. It said this was on Newkirk District, but I'm like 90% sure this map is actually called Newkirk City. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'm going to feel like an idiot. But if I'm right, then, man, and am I going to be proud at my knowledge of what maps are called. Because that's, like, one of my big weaknesses. Can't remember what any maps are called. I'm, like, super duper bad at it. It's kind of sad in many different ways. All right, so anyway, let's just move right on to announcement time. Tomorrow, I will be participating in, and tomorrow is, of course, January 31st, I will be participating in an Anatomy of StarCraft with EG's In Control and Panera from Panera 86. I've pimped out his channel before on one of my videos, but it's going to be about the Queen, and basically, as a commentator, I have no idea what I'm going to say for the entire thing. I am not that biologically inclined, but I'll figure it out. I'll do it. Also, hopefully, I'm working out with Dawnkraft right now. But there is a reasonable chance that I will be on the first episode of Lore of StarCraft this weekend. I will be a guest. I'm not sure who the other guests are going to be. It's going to be at least Dawnkraft, probably a couple other guys from the forums, and maybe one or two other people that want to hop on and discuss the lore of StarCraft. I'm not sure what the topic is yet, and even if I did know, I doubt he would let me tell you because it's supposed to be a big secret. Ooh, yeah, that's right, a secret. All right. Whoop. Anyway, we do have both of our players going for reasonably standard builds. Interestingly enough, we don't have Chobo going for the 15 hatch that has kind of started to come back as standard. I have actually not seen a whole lot of games where people go for 14 pools, at least against Terran. I mean, it's still amazingly standard against Protoss. But against Terran, you see a lot of people go for the 15 hatches just because Terran have kind of lost the ability to put on very strong early pressure like they used to. The metagame has very much transformed away from the Marine tank 12 to 14 minute pushes that were just incredibly strong and incredibly hard to stop. And it's kind of gone for more of this almost defensive play like we can see Firestorm posturing for right now. We have the bunker going up at the bottom of the ramp, which is a reasonable spot to put it. I prefer putting it at the top of the ramp, but I guess I can see this happening just because it helps to defend this little bottom section of the mineral line, and it kind of cuts off the ability for Zerglings to run around into this sector here once the command center is up. However, it doesn't protect anything that has to do with anything over here, and that's kind of just a little bit annoying. It looks like he might be creating... I don't know what he's going for right here. Because usually you'll see people put the bunker like here and then build a wall of supply depots from the bunker to the supply depot and have the bunker be flush with the supply depot right here. But he's putting a supply depot there, presumably so that you can't surround the bunker. But it doesn't really matter all that much because honestly this supply depot is not going to do a whole lot to prevent any amount of damage going down on the bunker. It looks like we do have the double queens starting to come out from Chobo. He has one queen already up at his at his main base, going ahead and infesting away spawn larva, injecting larva. No, it's not even called inject anymore. Interesting. I don't know why that's interesting to me, but it definitely used to be inject larva, and then they changed it to spawn. And I now know, this goes back to the AOS thing, which of course is going to be at 8 Eastern time tomorrow night. And I think it's going to be on EG In Control's Twitch TV channel, but I might be corrected about that by Mr. Panera on Skype by the end of this video, in which case I'll give the most updated information. And the correct stream, the absolutely correct streaming information will of course be down in the description below this channel. It looks like we do have a little bit of a poke up from a Chobo Zerglings, but they do take quite a bit of damage as they are forced to run back home. We have 2 evolution chambers now coming down for Chobo. So far it looks like he does not have any interest in teching at all. He is still gathering gas, so I could see a very rapid extension up the tech path coming soon. However, it looks like he's just going to be sticking pretty normally with Zerglings, and he might just be going for Infestors as soon as he's capable of it. There we do have armor. So we have +1 attacks and +1 armor coming up for ground units before the layer is even started, which is an interesting decision. You'll usually see a lot of players go for that +1 armor after they start the layer, or go for that +1 attack after they start the layer. However, you know, Chobo just don't care. He don't care at all. There's 8 drones now coming up for Chobo, so he is going for quite a bit of that drone production. He's going to be going for very economically inclined Zerg build, which is basically just every Zerg build ever. The layer is finally starting up right now. It looks like with this Overlord in this position, he's trying to kind of scout out, make sure the third's safe, make sure there's nothing up there hiding at the third. It looks like we do have 2 Hellion production currently coming out for Firestorm, and that's a lot of Hellions queued up, along with just singular Viking production. However, with this tech lab placed here, I don't know, he might be going for Banshees, and I do believe he is going to be going for Banshees because, you know, this starport is in basically perfect position to go down and float onto that tech lab. So we are probably going to be seeing Banshees coming out from Firestorm, which is a little bit interesting. You don't see a lot of players go for Banshees. You really, really don't. They're not really as good of units as they used to be in the past. It looks like this Viking is going to be able to fly around and clean up some Overlords, which is going to be quite annoying for Chobo, as you really never want those Overlords to be sniped. However, this one Overlord might just manage to float far enough into the base to get information on the Cloak and the Tech Lab on the Starport, and as soon as you kind of see his Starport churning with a Tech Lab, you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. You know to start building Overseers or Infestors or getting Spore Crawlers. You just know to start getting detection in some form. So it looks like this Viking is going to be doing its best job to snipe off the Overseer. But this Changeling is absolutely going to see both the add-on and the Starport itself, and the Overlord is going to go down. So there is perfect information now going down for Chobo, and I wouldn't be surprised to see CCwFireStorm either going for the throat right now and going for a pretty major attack and trying to harass the Zerg as much as possible, or canceling Cloak, canceling Banshee production, floating this off, getting its factory down there and building some tanks, and really going into the more standard macro game. However, it does not appear that that's what he wants to do. He's giving continuous... Okay, so Panera just messaged me, but he just said sure, so I don't actually know. I think that that means it's going to be on In Control stream, so of course there will be a link to that down in the description, but I'll need to check with that, with him on that. Alright, anyway, we do have a pretty major pack of Hellions now churning up for CCwFireStorm. He is going for +1 infantry attack, so which is kind of interesting. It looks like he's going to be going much heavier into the Marine play fairly soon. Stimpack is on the way. It looks like he is going to be swapping his Starport and his factory, so we are going to see double medevac production most likely, along with a little bit of a start to either siege tanks or Thors. I would honestly expect the siege tanks at this point. I don't know if Thors would be a good decision, because they're usually not when you're playing against a Zerg opponent. It looks like these 8 Hellions are going to be posturing themselves for an attack on the third base, which could be coming at any second, and in fact it is going to be coming at this second. Now of course there are absolutely no drones here, so these Hellions are not going to be doing nearly as much damage as they could potentially be doing, and of course they really don't have the ability to try to sneak into the main base here, because they're just going to take 90 million damage from this army. It looks like we do have a little bit of a transition here, but they are going to be going down quite rapidly to the Hellion forces, and oh my god, so many Infestors falling for no reason. Oh, that's painful. It looks like both of the Banshees are going to be cleaned up by the infested Terrans, so they didn't go down for absolutely nothing, but it was definitely a trivial thing to lose 4 or 5 Infestors over. And that was actually pretty painful to my head. It looks like we are cranking it on up to 7 Marine production for CCwFireStorm, which is quite a bit of Marine production. Yeah, it's definitely quite a bit of Marine production. We also have combat shields still not on the way, which is a little bit interesting. Usually you'll see players go for combat shields very early because it kind of helps make your Marines beefier, so that Stimpaks don't quite deal the percentage of damage that they deal without combat shields. However, it looks like he's just going to go for an extremely late one, and it is coming up right now. This drop is going to be moving down into the southern part of the map. There is no overlords currently to scout this out, which is going to be a pretty important factor, because even though there are spore crawlers in the base, I'm not sure. I think this dropship will be able to unload and do a significant amount of damage, especially considering the fact that the entire army is fighting off this sort of harassment force of Hellions. So we are going to see that medevacs now moving into the main base. They are going to start taking damage from the spore crawler, but I highly doubt that they're going to be taken out as a beautiful little, you know, kind of cross-section drop happens in the main base. It's going to be dealing quite a bit of damage. There's no real target for the sniping, and okay, it actually doesn't do too much damage. It wasn't really that bad. I mean, granted, it killed off a couple of drones, and he only lost, what, 7 Marines for it, so that's probably worth it. A couple of drones, a Queen, an Overlord or 2, an Infestor definitely made that all worth it. However, it just wasn't nearly as much damage as I think he could have done if he had just gone for the Infestation Pit. Because I think if he had, like, kind of as soon as the Spore Crawler would die, just targeted all of his Marines onto the Infestation Pit would have gone down. That Infestor that popped out probably would have gone down, and the Queen would have gone down. And that would have been a much, much bigger damage dealing blow than just killing off drones. Because really, killing off drones doesn't hurt that much at this stage of the game. Chobo is pretty safely ahead in Harvesters. I mean, 6 Harvesters, not the best, but, you know, granted the fact that he's lost 23 of them, he's not doing bad. And I could easily see a pretty major repopulation in the drone worker count for Chobo pretty soon. It looks like we are going to have yet another drop happening here, and that is just straight up annoying. However, with 2 Queens here, he should be able to fight this off with 2 Queens, a couple Zerglings, some Banelings, and the Spore Crawlers. There's going to be no lifting up for those Marines, and that attack was most certainly not worth it. I think all he got out of that was maybe a drone and also an Overlord, and losing 2 medevacs and like 8 Marines. Not worth it. It looks like we do have a CCwFireStorm moving out to his 3rd base, which is in a good position, but it's still going to be awkward for him to try to defend with only 1 siege tank, because this is a ton of Zerglings and Banelings, and his Baneling speed is just about to finish. In fact, this attack is pretty much perfectly timed. Their Baneling speed does finish. We do have a lot of Infestors currently out on the field for our Zerg player, and we are going to see a pretty major engagement taking place here. It's not so great to have to fight this at a planetary, but it's also not, you know, damning. It's not dooming. It looks like we have not the best Baneling hits going off. Actually, no, those Baneling hits worked out pretty well. So we are going to see basically the entire Terran army get cleaned up here. And I'm not sure how he's going to hold on to this, especially with these infested Terrans coming out. This was definitely not the best position for his infestors to be in. However, doesn't matter too much, because these are just such great infested Terran hits that are going down currently. It looks like this attack will actually be cleaned up. It is going to do, again, a lot of damage. You know, the 3rd base went down. That was extremely hurtful to his opponent. However, there just was not the backup production of Zerglings there to really deal a killing blow. So instead, the Terran army is going to be able to push this out of his base, which, you know, it's pretty good for the Terran. It's not amazing because, again, he lost his 3rd base and an entire army, but it's really not awful because, you know, he didn't lose the game. Which, you know, is, again, basically the worst thing that can happen in a StarCraft game. The worst thing is that you can lose. There are 13 drones on the way for Chobo, so he is going to be going right back up in that worker count. And we do see him taking a very commanding lead in the Harvester count currently. It's 69 to 36, which is pretty nasty, especially with 5 more on the way. It's going to be finishing up at around 75 to 36, which is, of course, about double the number, which is not really at all what you want in a situation like this. Even with mules, those worker counts are still out of whack. And in fact, he's going up another 13 drones, so he is going to be heading right up there in numbers. He's going to be going up to 86, which is a lot of drones. Some would call that a little bit too many drones. I'm kind of on the edge. You know, it's 6 over the optimized 80, and we are going to see some pretty serious oversaturation in almost every base, except for the natural here. But as soon as the main starts to, you know, lack in minerals, I should say, we are going to see some oversaturation. It looks like the 4th base is now coming up. There are going to be 2 extractors going down there, so he is going to be going right for the gas on that base and probably right for the minerals, because this base is not going to last all that long. It looks like there is the Maynard of probes, or of drones heading out there. But currently there's still not a whole lot of damage that has been done to the Zerg economy. Here is the first major snipe off that's going to be happening in a little while, but again, the drone count is just so overwhelmingly in the Zerg's favor that even losing these drones doesn't hurt too much. Especially if you manage to do a reasonable amount of damage in return to the Terran player's economy, which of course he was not able to do. He was not able to snipe off the medevac, which I would have called a reasonable amount of damage. However, I still think Chobo is in an absolutely overwhelming position in this game. We do have the Greater Spire on the way. We have Corruptors on the way. We have, what, 7, 8 Infestors out on the field right now. If we look at the units tab, yeah, it's 12 Infestors. That's a lot of Infestors. That's a lot of potential damage. And he basically has the right amount of drones right now. He can basically just start transferring right into unit production and be perfectly fine. And with 6 Corruptors on the way, that's going to be a lot of unit production as far as Broodlords go, and that's going to be a lot of potential damage to be done for Chobo. It looks like we have some Queens grouping up into the army. They want to be there to heal the Broodlords as soon as the Broodlords pop out, which is a reasonable idea. Now, of course, the creep spread for Chobo is absolutely nowhere near optimal. However, again, CCwFireStorm still not in the best position either economically or army-wise. And we do have a little bit of engagement that's going to be going down here, but it's a primarily bio force on creep against Zerglings, Banelings, and Infestors. Not exactly an optimized position, especially considering the fact that he does not have medevacs. It looks like the snipe will go down on the hatchery, which is annoying, granted, but it's not, again, it's not game ending. There is another hatchery coming up here at the 5th base for the Zerg player. I would not be surprised to see this base literally come back after maybe 4 or 5 minutes. But with these Broodlords, it's going to be dangerous for the Terran player very soon. It looks like the medevacs are going to be swooping into the main base just a little bit. However, by the time they swoop in, they might be met with Infestors, and Infestors are not what you want your medevacs to be met with at all. It looks like there is going to be a move out from the Zerg player, and this could be a killing blow for the Terran. There's not too many siege tanks out. There's only 6 currently in a fighting position out on the field, and honestly, 6 siege tanks are going to have an issue versus this army, especially because Viking production has not really kicked up into overdrive. There's only 3 Vikings I currently see on this field, which is not optimal at all. It looks like a Marine will manage to run out there and get a snipe off on the Changeling. However, again, the upgrade count is in the Terran's favor, but not overwhelmingly. And the Zerg player is just right behind, and the tech count is absolutely in the Zerg player's favor with these Broodlords. And this is gonna be a long and nasty siege. It looks like we are going to have those Corruptors running out. Infestors also running out, so we are going to see quite a few dead Infestors. And there was only 1 Broodlord that went down. And honestly, the Zerg player can literally just sit here and siege and siege and siege onto this planetary fortress. Because every second you're attacking this planetary fortress is a second that all those SCVs aren't mining, and is a second where the repair has to be done. It looks like we do have a pretty major snipe squad going into the main base, and actually does manage to take out the hive. But again, that's not overwhelming damage because the Greater Spire is still up, and as long as the creep tumor can get over there before the Greater Spire goes down, he's perfectly fine. The engagement has soured a little bit for our Zerg player, but I'm not quite sure how much yet. A lot of the Infestors have gone down, along with a couple more Broodlords and definitely a whole lot of the Banelings. However, with this army, he should still be able to do a reasonable amount of damage to all of these Marines, in fact, taking them all out. And now with this grouping of Zerglings, we are going to see all the siege tanks taken out, almost certainly, especially with the 3 extra Broodlords. However, after that, that's going to be the extent of the damage done. Chobo is swinging in with a lot more Zerglings, and honestly, if he manages to catch these things without siege on the open ground, he could get a little bit awkward there. We do have the siege happening, so a lot of these Zerglings are going to be going down in the original volley. However, they are going to be able to get a couple of siege tanks and quite a few Marines, and really Chobo just needs to start flooding units a lot more than he has been so far. If we look at his larva inject mechanics so far, it looks like he managed to lose like every one of his queens, which definitely does not help with macro. Losing all of your queens, not typically good for the macro Zerg player. And we kind of see him almost falling apart at this point, as CCwFireStorm is going to be moving out with a pretty paltry army, but I'm not actually sure if our Zerg player is going to be able to coordinate a defense large enough to kill it. and I'm actually pretty sure he won't be able to coordinate defense large enough to kill it. He does have quite a few Zerglings sweeping up into the main base, or into the 4th base, but with this bunker down, it shouldn't be that hard to keep alive. And here we do have a lot of damage happening to this hatchery. There are 5 Corruptors on the way, but again, Chobo almost threw this game away in that last engagement. I didn't actually see the middle part of it because of the beautiful sniping from CCwFireStorm, and I'm guessing that that's what happened to Chobo too. He had reinforcements ready to go, and he just panicked about that sort of drop in the main base, and he absolutely freaked out and stopped microing his units on the battlefield. He lost a lot of infestors to unnecessary tank volleys, and he took way more damage than he needed to. There are now 8 Broodlords on the way, along with 8 Corruptors, so they should be able to match up reasonably well versus this Viking force. However, it's still not an optimal position whenever you need to fight off Vikings with only Corruptors, because you really want those infestors to help you out with that. And CCwFireStorm is going to be taking out 2 bases and then returning on home. Definitely a good decision, because this puts the Zerg back onto 1 mining base. Now, of course, the Terran also on 1 mining base, but Terrans are typically in a better position when they're on 1 mining base than Zergs are. So we are going to see the Terran player starting to take a little bit more of a lead in this game. He does currently still have the food lead. He doesn't have all too many Vikings at this point, and he definitely needs more Viking production. He needs a lot more Vikings just out on the field in general. However, with pure Marine numbers, so long as there aren't as many infestors out on the field, and currently there are no infestors out on the field, I do not believe, no, there are no infestors out on the field, you can still win a fight like this with just straight up Marines, just because Broodlords are very good for taking out Marines if the Marines can't hit back. And Marines can't hit back when you have fungal growth. But when you don't have fungal growth, they absolutely can. It looks like we are going to have every one of the drones being pulled into this engagement. Oh my god, Chobo is absolutely going for the throat. This is a very interesting strategy. It's very cool. It's a nice thing for a Zerg player to do, as it is going to give that extra buffer for the Broodlords to be able to do a reasonable amount of damage, and for the Corruptors to be able to snipe off all of the medevacs. However, I do not think it's going to be enough. All of the Lings and drones have gone down for Chobo, and we are now seeing those Marines doing incredible amounts of damage to the Broodlords, and without any armor upgrades, that is going to be the loss of the game for Chobo. Wow, that was a very interesting last engagement. I can't believe he pulled all the drones. That was literally the most last-ditch effort I have ever seen in a game, ever. Just pulling every single drone and being like, I'm going against siege tanks and Marines, but I hear drones are pretty good units. I mean, let's be honest. They have the regen that the other workers just don't have, and that is absolutely fantastic. but anyway, guys, if you want to have your games commentated, you can send them on into boisteroussc2@gmail.com. Also, if you would like to watch any of the other games I have commentated, you can send them on into you can go head on over to youtube.com/user/boisteroussc2. I really have not been able to talk today, and I hope that didn't actually remove that much from your experience watching this video. And if it did, sorry, I can't talk for some reason. I'm super fidgety today, and it's kind of weird. But anyway, this is Boisterous, signing out.